You should talk to my grandpa about this. He's got a map of it on his prosthetic leg.
I didn't see that. I thought you were joking when you said that.
That is a real comment that someone said.
Yeah.
What it is that he has a map of, I have no idea. No context. It could be a snail.
Yeah.
It could be Mr. Dillman. I don't know.
Where's the modern day Freddie Crystal who's going to show up in Kanab in 2025 with a prosthetic leg with a map on it?
It got hit by lightning and the lightning carved a map.
Yeah, that's the best idea. Part of it is if he has no idea how it got there. He just woke up one day morning and he's like, there's a map on my leg.
Welcome to the Cash Me Outside podcast with your hosts, Christian, Chad, and Alex. This is the wrap-up episode of our season on Montezuma's Lost Treasure, and we are frustrated because of technical difficulties, a little bit peeved, if I might say, but we're ready to go.
I feel like you're referring only to me.
So you know, we've just had like 10 cases where I've started talking and Christian's just looked at me and gone, no.
I want to be clear. Not only do I provide no value to this podcast from like speaking and planning, I like nothing I do helps. Like basically Chad does all the setup. We just watch him and then we will sometimes criticize him even though we're doing nothing. And then he gets even more pissed off.
Chad is very much stage crew of this production and we appreciate it. Chad, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
The thing is, I don't necessarily want you guys to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I want you to change that for me.
But in the meantime,
like Christian, if you could show up 15 minutes early and just handle the audio stuff.
Yeah. But instead of helping you, Chad, thank you very much for all that you do.
We're going to hire a fourth member of the podcast to come on and just kind of mediate, honestly. We could probably use it. No, it's good. Thank you, Chad. We love you.
Yeah.
So you'll notice Christian and Chad are sharing a microphone and sharing a camera today. That's because we felt like they it's a therapy. It's therapeutic. They needed some time together. That's the only reason.
Our thighs are touching, and so are our souls.
They actually put their hands on each other's upper thigh to decide who's going to talk next in the microphone. It's a really cute situation over here.
It's good.
My hands are sweating.
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Well, we just kind of talked about it. We kind of suck.
Yeah,
no, honestly, it's great. The snow is falling like just beautifully outside. We finally have some snow coming in. Some moisture just blessed our land.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm feeling great. It's a Friday, and I have loved this season. I came into this with no expectations or no understanding of the story, and you have transformed me, Alex. Oh, You've taken me somewhere. You've taken me to the rugged hills of Mexico. You've taken me to the Grand River of the Grand Canyon, the Grand Canyon of a Grand Canyon, and up to the promised land of Kanab, Utah.
Yeah.
This has been a fun expedition, and we're excited to kind of summarize it for you today and talk about our plans for our next treasure hunt.
Exactly. The other thing I'll say that I've loved about this season is I feel like we've learned a ton, like 30% through our own research, and then like 70% through TikTok comments
on TikTok. Yeah.
People correct. So thank you. Honestly, genuinely, we appreciate that. Please keep them coming. We are not historians. We don't have our PhDs in Aztec history or Montezuma's treasure.
Can we quickly share our favorite comments we've got on TikTok?
Yes.
Because there's one that is clearly in first place, which is the person that said, you should talk to my grandpa about this. He's got a map of it on his prosthetic leg.
I didn't see that. I thought you were joking when you said that.
That is a real comment that someone said.
Yeah.
What it is that he has a map of, I have no idea. No context. It could be a snail.
Yeah.
It could be Mr. Dillman. I don't know.
Where's the modern day Freddie Crystal who's going to show up in Kanab in 2025 with a prosthetic leg with a map on it?
It got hit by lightning and the lightning carved a map.
Yeah, that's the best idea. Part of it is if he has no idea how it got there. He just woke up one day morning and he's like, there's a map on my leg.
He woke up one morning and is like, I only have one leg now.
He went to bed with two fully functioning legs.
Wakes up out of a coma in the hospital and is like, oh, I only have one leg now. However, on that prosthetic, that would be great. So here's what we're going to do. I want to do a Cliff Notes blitz through everything that we've talked about. I'm going to try to do it in like 5 to 8 minutes, interruption free. And then we're going to kind of just do a final like wrap up of, parting thoughts, favorite favorite pieces of the season, everything like that.
And what's next season, right?
And tease the next season. Yep. Before that, however, Christian, is there anything that you want to say to our audience?
Oh, yeah. I'd like to make an apology to the audience and to the FLDS Church.
This is like a Michael Scott apology.
Yeah, so the entire season, I've been so excited because I felt like I had some information that I was going to drop in this final amazing episode in which I talk about how Montezuma's treasure was actually in a mountain being guarded by a host of FLDS men, and more women than men. And I was going to share some personal insights from it. After investigating it and really asking just one or two clarifying questions to neighbors as well as Google, I've determined that this story, which is real, in which there is an FLDS group, or not really FLDS, but kind of an offshoot of the LDS Church group that believes that there is a treasure in a mountain that is going to come forth at the second coming of the Savior. That is a real story. It's a mine. It's referred to as the Dream Mine, and it is in Utah, and it is something you can buy a share of, a stake of, and there is a large amount of people that still believe in it. However, it is not anywhere near Kanab, Utah.
And has nothing to do with Montezuma's treasure, like
or his tremors. So, I mean, correlation, yes.
Causation,
yeah, no. But it is actually a really interesting story, and I encourage you to all look it up about the Dream Mine in Utah, which you all could be proud owners of.
You have a discount code?
We actually are now sponsored by the Dream Mine.
The Dream Mine?
It's called the Dream Mine, which I actually sometimes refer to as
That's the worst thing you've ever said.
I obviously just wanted to give us a moment to edit out. Okay.
I'm just gonna.
You gotta bleep it. You're not gonna cut it. You gotta bleep it. Yeah. Everybody is gonna wonder.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody's gonna wonder what the bleeped out word was. That is just so everybody knows. You're not gonna know what Christian said because we're gonna bleep it out. By far, like orders of magnitude, the most inappropriate, awkward thing Christian has ever said on this podcast.
I was going for some shock humor there, so I apologize.
Oh man.
And okay. But yes, the Dream Mine is a real thing. Look it up. It has nothing to do with Montezuma. And next season, I promise, I'll have a real thing to contribute.
Okay. Well, should we jump into the meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts?
Let's do it.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to blitz through the entire thing, and then we'll give some wrap-up thoughts. Sound good? Whew. Okay. Montezuma's treasure. 1428 in what is modern-day Mexico City. The Aztec Empire is formed via the combination of three previous kind of native empires, basically. Right? It's combined. 1502, Montezuma II, he who frowns like a lord, ascends to the throne of the Aztec Empire in Tenochtitlan, which is in the middle of Lake Texcoco, and continues this pattern of subordinating all of these surrounding tribes, kingdoms, what have you, and amassing, according to a lot of records, a just crap ton of treasure. Gold, art. He also collects like exotic animals in his zoo. He's got this just wild setup in Tenochtitlan. 1520, Cortez and the Spaniards arrive under the promise of being able to find and steal this great treasure, right? One of the kind of original Spanish conquistadors in search of treasure. They get greeted by Montezuma as a god. They think that Cortez is this promised god who's going to come and take over the throne and live with mankind once again, which is great for Cortez because he's like, awesome, can I have all your gold? They start melting it down. The people start turning on Montezuma. Cortez leaves to go deal with some drama with other Spaniards, comes back, and there's a skirmish between the Spaniards and the Aztecs as they're trying to leave. The Aztecs kill a bunch of Spaniards. A bunch of these Spaniards are trying to port out as much gold as they can in the process of doing so, but then they leave, and they leave for a little while. In that time, many people believe that the priests of the Aztec Empire, at this time Montezuma is out of the throne, the priests of the Aztec Empire order the abscondment basically of the entirety, or what was left of the Aztec treasure. It's called Montezuma's treasure, by ordering a bunch of Aztec warriors and slaves to pack up and leave, right? The idea being, hey, once we survive this Spanish conquest thing, we'll call you back, we'll bring the treasure back. Jump forward a long time, hundreds of years, we start getting these stories of prospectors in the American Southwest running into this treasure, right? The idea here is that the Aztec warriors and slaves went up into the American Southwest, which there's a lot of evidence that suggests is actually the Nahuatl people, right? The people that formed the Aztec Empire's homeland, and was an active trading route for them. It also became part of the Spanish Road, right? So there's a lot of native lore that's passed down as far as Costa Rica, and definitely up into the Paiute and Apache tribes in the American Southwest, that tell stories about them coming across these other foreign natives who were transporting this big amount of gold, and in the case of the Paiute people, making a deal with them, right? Basically saying, hey, you need to help us guard this treasure. If not, when our king calls us back, you're going to be in big trouble. Anyways, so a couple stories of these prospectors. 1867, James White, an American prospector, teams up with Captain Charles Baker and Horse Guy, and they go prospecting kind of around the Grand Canyon. They get attacked by natives, or by Native Americans, and Captain Charles Baker dies. James White and Horse Guy run to kind of flee down the Grand Canyon. Horse Guy dies in the rapids. They build a raft. Horse Guy dies in the rapids, and then James White is floating for days down the Grand Canyon, or down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. He tells this story eventually of one day kind of running up against an embankment of the Colorado River, seeing a little hole in the wall, basically in the cliffside, crawling into it, passing out, waking up to firelight and some Native Americans. And he makes a deal with them. He says, I'll give you my gun and everything I have if you just feed me. And in doing so, he looks around and he sees that he is actually in a cavern full of gold, right? The Native Americans feed him. He makes his way back down the river, eventually lands at, I think it's Rioville, Mormon settlement at the end of the Colorado River, becomes the first white person to traverse the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And then once he can finally speak again after days, tells this story, it creates this huge hoopla around Montezuma's treasure. There's a historian that comes and visits him and shows him pictures, and asks him, hey, does this look familiar? And he says, yeah, that's the treasure I found. And this historian's like, oh, that's Aztec treasure, right? Then later in 1902, so that leads to a bunch of people starting to try to search the Grand Canyon. In 1902, another prospector by the name of Jake Johnson, is prospecting in the Badlands of St. George, Utah, breaks his leg prospecting alone in the desert, which sucks, but Jake Johnson's kind of a sucky guy. Thinks he's going to die, ends up getting found by a Paiute Native American man who nurses him back to health, again, in exchange for, he makes a deal, all of his gear and everything like that. And in the course of this, he kind of starts developing a friendship with this Paiute man. Eventually, there's this moment where the Paiute man is out hunting, and a mountain lion attacks the dwelling of the Paiute man and his wife. And Jake Johnson fights off the mountain lion, saves the guy's wife, and kind of earns the trust of the Paiute man and by extension, the Paiute people. Paiute man kind of then lets spill to Jake Johnson that his people have been protecting this massive treasure, and it's their kind of sacred charge. It tells the story of what I just kind of talked about, the Aztecs intermingling with the Paiutes, everything there. Jake Johnson kind of thinks about this for a little while, and then goes to the guy and says, hey, if this treasure is real, can you show me? I mean, he's a prospector, right? Can you show it to me? And the Paiute man, according to the story, takes a couple days to think about it, and then eventually tells him, yes, if we are both alive in 1 year, we will meet at this designated place, and I will take you to the treasure. So Jake Johnson writes to his brother, hangs around, nearby for a year, shows up at the time of the meet. The Paiute man shows up as well with a couple of other members of the tribe. They blindfold him and his brother. First, they're like, WTF, why is your brother here? That's not cool. They They blindfold him, take him on a multi-day journey. He talks about how they're trying to track how far away it is and everything like that. And eventually they undo the blindfolds, and they are in a cavern full of gold again. And they tell them, you can take as much as you can carry. Him and his brother do so. They're blindfolded again and taken back into civilization. There's some kind of records and stories that they went to Salt Lake City and sold this gold for a small fortune. They used it to buy like top of the line prospecting equipment, mining equipment, and eventually they also both bought ranches. And these are poor prospectors, right? That's how they made their money. They both spent the rest of their lives, Jake Johnson and his brother, the rest of their lives looking for that treasure, never found it. As they got a little bit older, they sent this story into the Salt Lake Mining Gazette that published this story, which again drew tons of people into Utah, particularly around the Grand Canyon, to prospect and look for the gold. Wasn't found in the course of doing this. Later, about a decade later, in 1914, in Kanab, Utah, which is in the southeastern part of Utah, right near the border, Utah-Arizona border, a man named Freddie Crystal walks into town in Kanab. Freddie Crystal was originally a prospector in Idaho, and he has this crazy story to tell. He says that while he's prospecting in Idaho, he got hit by a crowbar in the head and was put into a coma. He had what he called a panorama, which is just this big vision where he saw, almost like the monologue, or not the monologue, almost the montage of the story of the treasure, right? Aztec or Native Americans carrying this big procession, carrying the treasure, hiding it, and then he sees this hieroglyphic at the end of his vision. He has no idea what that means, but he starts researching the Aztec treasure and everything like that. Eventually, he's kind of sitting either in Salt Lake City or in Idaho reading the newspaper, and he sees in the paper a little article about a Mormon elder who was visiting Kanab and took a couple of pictures and posted the picture into the newspaper, and the picture was the exact hieroglyphic from his vision. So Freddie Crystal got on his bicycle and rode his bicycle 300 miles south to Kanab, Utah, shows up, starts looking for treasure. He pairs up with this guy, Oscar Robinson, who puts him up. He's a ranch owner, puts him up at his ranch, and Freddie Crystal spends a couple years looking for the treasure, never finds it, eventually discovers that the hieroglyphic he was looking for was blown up by a farmer in Kanab, leaves town, according to the story that I like the most, leaves town for 6 years. Everybody thinks he's gone. Shows up 6 years later, knocks on Oscar Robinson's door with a map. And he said, I rode my bike to Mexico City and was kind of hanging around there, and there's an old monastery that they're about to tear down. I went in and I found this old scroll from the time of when Cortez was interacting with Montezuma, and it had this map. Brought it back to Kanab, matched the map up with the topography of Kanab with the help of the folks in Kanab, and eventually, with a couple of the ranch hands of Oscar Robinson's ranch, finds this cliffside that had man-made steps in the cliffside that lined up with his map, goes with the two ranch hands, finds in kind of an indent in the wall, starts carving away. It gives way to some limestone, which it just is very clear that this was a mortared door. Basically, it was a sealed up man-made door. They break through the door and they uncover like this big tunnel. Basically, it was a man-made tunnel. So they go back into town and they create this just absolute chaos in Kanab, where everybody in Kanab every man in Kanab starts going up to help Freddie Crystal excavate this crazy system of tunnels that includes like booby traps and dead man falls and everything like that. They dig for a couple of years and don't find anything. At the end of that, Freddie Crystal's like, oh, hey, sorry guys, false alarm. I actually think that this was like a temporary holding place of the treasure. I actually think that the real treasure is at the bottom of this cliff where we've been throwing all of the like debris from our digging. And the people in Kanab didn't like that. Freddie Crystal disappears. There's stories in Kanab that he was murdered. There's stories that say he was murdered for his map, murdered because they were pissed at him. And then, stories that he just left town and was never seen from again. Fast forward several decades into the 1970s is the next time we have a big story about Montezuma's treasure, staying in Kanab. There's a family, the Judd family, whose grandfather was involved with Freddie Crystal in looking for the treasure. They're sitting on the ranch one day, and a green van pulls up. It's the Dillmans. Ray Dillman, the head of the Dillman family, asks if there's any hieroglyphics on their property. He pulls out a picture and says, "Is there any hieroglyphics that look like this?" And they say, "Actually, yeah, here they are." And he says, "Montezuma's treasure is on your property," which starts the Judd family, particularly the two Judd brothers at the time, to start digging around their property looking for treasure. They don't find treasure, but they find all sorts of wild stuff. According to their recounting, they find a tomb with a bunch of human remains. There's a bowl that falls in the course of excavating that's full of turquoise beads, which Chad seems to believe are measured in carats. Very valuable turquoise beads. But that's another just kind of wild coincidence that happened with, Indian hieroglyphics, finding things that are being, in the course of excavating. And then the final story is Brant Child. Jump forward to the 1980s. Brant Child is a Salt Lake man. He moves to Kanab after retiring. He apparently made a decent amount of money, moves to Kanab, and starts in kind of engaging in the treasure hunt for Montezuma's treasure with the Judds and the Dillmans and everybody that's down there doing the same thing. He quickly kind of formulates a different theory on where the treasure is. He thinks that the treasure is actually 10 miles to the west of Kanab, up Highway 89 in Three Lakes Canyon. And so he starts looking around there. He finds a Native American symbol carved into the ground that's pointing to a pond in Three Lakes Canyon called Three Lakes Pond. It's a fairly decent-sized pond. So he buys the property for the purpose of, he believes that that's where the Aztecs hid. That's where they put the permanent hiding place or resting place of the treasure. In particular, he believes that they used a water trap to do so. Right? They drained the pond, dug a tunnel, dug a cavern, put the treasure in the cavern, and then filled the pond again. So wild series of stories with Brant Child. I'll go through them really quick. First thing he tries to do is scuba dive. He gets a scuba diving buddy. Scuba diving buddy goes down and feels like he's getting swept away into this tunnel, so he bails. He hires 3 professional scuba divers out of San Francisco. They come and try to scuba dive through the tunnel. All sorts of wacky things happen. First, that they run out of rope as they're trying to get there, right when a metal detector goes off. Then they start reporting things like ghosts choking them and tearing their masks off. They come out of the water and their tanks have been tampered with. They're out of oxygen, all sorts of stuff, such that the divers give up. The divers call it quits. So Brant Child next says, okay, fine, I'm going to do what the Aztecs did, and I'm going to drain the pond. That's easy. Goes to drain the pond, and Fish and Wildlife step in, and they're like, actually, Brant, sorry, we just discovered that this is the second location of an endangered species of snail called the Kanab amber snail, and if you drain this and you kill any snails, it's $50,000 fine for each snail. So Brant's like, I can't do that. So that next thing he tries to do is he says, okay, I'm going to drill. I know where this tunnel goes. I'm going to kind of just drill along the tunnel until I can maybe puncture something and find the cavern from above. He gets his buddy that is a driller to do that, and they do. They puncture into something. They pull a drill bit out. It's got flecks of gold, and a bunch of a rotten smell comes out of the drill hole when they do that. That drill guy goes home that night, dies of a heart attack. And that drill guy's wife, 3 weeks later, also dies. So they didn't continue that quest. What they needed to do was get a bigger drill and drill a hole big enough for them to go down into. So then finally, Brant Child's like, okay, I'm going to excavate the property, right? He gets an excavator, he digs up the property and everything like that with shovels and everything. In the course of doing this, they keep running into issues with their equipment, including they show up one day and the excavator has been the gas tank's been filled with sand, and he starts having these interactions with a couple of Paiute Indians that are coming onto his property, telling him, you need to stop looking for this. It's not the time. This is not for you. This treasure's not for you to find. And he eventually gives up. Right. Brant Child then leaves Kanab for some time, comes back several years later. In 2002, Brant Child dies in a car accident on Highway 89. He hits a black horse at night, which could very well just be a way that people die normally, but I tend to believe that's a way people die when they are cursed for looking for lost treasure. Okay, so I promised 15 minutes, and there we go. How long did I take?
I actually don't know how long that was, but that was good. You know what I was thinking that entire time?
Yeah.
I was just seeing TikTok comments throughout the entire story.
Oh, just like what people have said.
What people are saying about specific things. How people are so mad about, was it Jacob White? Or the White? Like the man telling him to come back in a year. It's like, why a year? Like, people were very mad about that.
Yeah.
People got mad at the way you pronounce Paiute instead of Paiute.
Which, by the way, I've heard both of those pronunciations.
I feel like I have too, so I don't know.
Back off,
there were a
TikTok.
lot of complaints.
Yeah.
We've heard of it from other ignorant white people like us. So
that's
our excuse. No, we've had some friends that say it wrong too.
Yeah.
Is it wrong?
I've only heard Paiute.
I've only ever heard Paiute.
I've heard Paiute.
Sorry, Alex.
Sorry.
First of all, incredible. I think it would be super cool if you went to a city council and filibustered by just telling that story with no context.
Just pull out the script.
Yeah, it's like that scene in Parks and Rec where
What does she do?
It's like Star Wars fan fiction, whatever. Yeah.
Anyways, I think the story is fascinating. I think it'd be kind of fun to give a little bit of updates on like some of the information we've received from other individuals like who've left comments on TikTok, because a lot of people were wondering like, okay, what's going on with that land now? Like, what's going on with Three Lakes Pond? Can we get there? Do you want to go scuba diving this weekend? We even got an invite. We got a professional scuba diver who said, I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
So that the family, what's the family, the last family who owned
Child.
it? The Child family owned it.
Yep.
Mr. Child sadly died by hitting a black horse at night, and that their family owned that land for some time, and it sounded like there was some infighting maybe with the family about wanting to sell it. People who wanted to sell it, I think, even went to legal matters to force the sale, which they did, and it was purchased by the Best Friends Animal Society Sanctuary,
right?
Well, here it says society. I think we're probably splitting hairs there. Splitting horse hairs. So it was purchased for $1.5 million, that property, by this society, which sounds super fake. I'm not going to fly Best Friends Pet Society. Why do you want to buy a couple acres of land in Kanab?
Well, you can't say Illuminati about the property.
I know exactly that's what I'm trying to say. I am all about the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I'm all about the fact that like the government is trying to find hidden treasures because they care about that shiz, okay?
I love it. Which, by the way, if that reduces the national debt.
Listen, real-time story, the one in Ecuador. The government seized that.
All the time. All the time.
So I honestly think, who off Freddie Crystal?
Yeah.
Well, that's a government agent in the 60s.
Yeah.
Did somebody else?
For sure.
No. I'm
just
saying
Christian's thoughts.
Do you think that was a horse that the guy hit on the road, or do you think it was?
Let me tell you this: as an amateur treasure researcher / high-end podcast creator, 2 rules that I think have emerged very clearly if you know where treasure is. First, Native Americans. If you and your tribe are protecting a sacred treasure, never, ever, 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 ever tell a white guy about it. This story is replete with instances of white prospectors being like, "Oh yeah, like I'll go take a look and I'll just take as much as I can carry," and then just like getting gold fever.
Yeah, totally.
So that's lesson number 1. Okay. Lesson number 2: never, ever, 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 ever tell the government. If you find treasure, don't tell the government about it.
That's a very good point, or especially the IRS. So I think government people were the ones who off Freddie Crystal. I think they're the people that killed Mr.
Kennedy?
Kennedy, yeah. And also this guy again, brother Mr. Child. I think they're the ones that found the fake snails on the property and trying to shut it down that way. And when that didn't work...
was suspicious. How did they catch wind so fast? What was that?
Because they have sleeper agents planted in Kanab, Utah, because they know the treasure's hidden there somewhere.
I love it.
So they're sleeper agents. They're the ones that killed the geese. They're the ones who like, hey, Jeff, dress up like a Paiute and tell people that stop hiding for it. They're the ones that put sand in the thing.
Yeah.
They're the ones that killed they killed the driller and his wife. They killed them.
Attacked him.
They all
honestly
swept it under the rug.
I think I'm down. That's so good.
These are coincidences, but even more than that, this is the government.
Yeah.
And they're trying to hide it because they want the treasure for themselves.
By the way, I think you just put yourself on the list, Christian.
I don't care about curses. I'm not scared of curses. I'm not scared about the government.
Okay.
And I don't believe COVID's real.
Just so we're clear, Christian is not suffering from any like immediate life-threatening illnesses, has no thought, no suicidal ideation, anything like that. You are of sound mind and sound body.
I have 3 new rashes that have shown up in the last couple of weeks, but I'm just going to let those go. Those are going to heal themselves. Okay, so I ain't scared of the government. Come at me, bro. I ain't scared of these curses. Come at me, bro.
I love it.
But I love these conspiracy theories, and I love the idea that there's been a force behind the scenes to try to protect this treasure or get it themselves.
I love it. Can we do something as we wrap? I would like for each of us to go around and say either their favorite part of the story or their favorite character of the story that we've just kind of gone through. And then also give in percentage terms the likelihood that Montezuma's treasure still exists somewhere in the world.
Can I start?
Sure.
Likelihood? I honestly think the Spanish took it. Originally.
Oh my. Okay, you wasted so much time.
We could have had a 20-minute episode.
Episode 1.
I like being here and talking with my friends.
Oh my gosh, you told me all of this cool evidence just to like lure me in. Be like, no, it's real. No, here's the deal. They don't have it because there's no artifacts.
Yeah.
There's no Aztec artifacts in Spain.
Yeah.
If they took this much treasure, there's going to be some family of some soldier that kept this artifact that's on like Antique Roadshow Spanish version that comes on and it says, we found this, and the guy comes on, that's an Aztec
You know what
pendant.
happens? You know what happens too? Every time somebody says, I don't believe in the Aztec treasure, an Aztec warrior ghost loses his wings.
That's a really, really good point.
True. So
you clip their wings.
Anyways, okay, 10%, Chad. But what are your?
What's your explanation as to why there hasn't been any evidence in Spain that the treasure made it that way? Right there.
What do you mean?
I have an explanation for that.
I mean, they were notoriously the richest nation by far because
they had
literally
tons of Spanish gold.
Of gold from South America and Central America.
Also,
they didn't just do this with the Aztecs, they did this with the Incans.
So how
did the exact same thing.
But how do you explain the fact that there is Incan artifacts in Spain? There are Cuban or all sorts of artifacts from the Americas in Spain, but there's no Aztec artifacts.
I got you.
What? Because during the story of Montezuma, they melted it.
They smelted
down.
it, yeah.
Okay, I don't believe it. I don't think you can just melt that much gold. It was the biggest treasure in the world. You think they melted all of it down?
The other thing to point out is in the early part of the 16th century, right, which is when all this was happening, the Spanish Empire was at war with England and with the Netherlands and were massively in debt from all of their conquests and everything like that. So, okay, Chad says 10%. What was your favorite part of the story, though, Chad? Or favorite character?
Brantchild. Honestly, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I feel like if I was born in a different time, I would be friends with Brantchild.
Yeah.
He'd be a close personal friend. Christian.
Or Horse Guy. Horse Guy was hilarious. Horse Guy's funny. And I like that we don't know who he is, and we don't know where he is, what happened to him.
Yeah, he's just a little insert into the story of James White.
Of the story. Yeah. Like, he got hit over the head and just floated down the river.
And after this life, when we are all gathered in heaven, there'll be a moment where we announce him, and all of us will bow, and hushed tones will fall across us.
Oh my gosh!
As we acknowledge
to the guy that stole horses but was too afraid to actually steal horses.
Yeah. Okay, do you want my percent chance?
Please.
100%. There's a 100% chance. There's no way that those people did not at least take a large portion of the gold and kick it out of there. That gold was so important to that civilization, and they were seeing through Cortez pretty quickly that this guy is not legit. After even they've taken a small portion of gold, which there's no way with the small amount of forces that Cortez had there initially, that they had the forces, the manpower to melt that much gold and to move it out. So the gold would have had to have been taken back when they came back to kill the Aztecs. And the Aztecs knew they were coming, and they got the gold and they got the hell out of there. They went on their trade routes, which we know went up and through South North America, and it makes very much sense. South North America, the south portion of North America,
the Americas,
and it makes very much
right
sense
in the west-east
that they were
region.
That their knowledge of those trade routes in that area, that they would have taken that treasure for the purpose of resettling, hiding that treasure, maybe getting back to it, and
I like
hiding from the Cortez. There are so many evidences of this. We have multiple accounts from different people, albeit prospectors, but also non-prospectors, that have shown that there's evidence of these treasures. And there's just too when there's the favorite quote, where there's fire, there's smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you have all these different people sharing all these different experiences and they all line up, there's something there.
Okay. Favorite part of the story?
There's not always smoke where there's fire.
Give me an example.
Have you ever heard of smokeless fire pits?
A lighter.
Propane.
Okay.
Even a campfire, like mid-fire. It doesn't have that much smoke.
A campfire always has smoke.
I agree with Christian on that.
And the end.
No, at every point of a fire and a campfire, there's smoke.
If you're burning wood, yeah.
All right.
There's smoke. This fire must be almost over.
Okay.
We're seeing the smoke. Not
Christian, favorite part of the story?
I like Billy Crystal. Freddie Crystal.
I'm glad you like Billy Crystal, but what's your favorite part of the story?
I like Freddie Crystal and the fact that he had a vision. Number one, he got hit on the crowbar. Love to hear the backstory there. How do you get hit by a crowbar? He has a vision, sees a picture in somewhere, gets on his bicycle and rides his bike from Rexburg, Idaho, all the way down to southern Utah to go discover treasure, which is just an incredible story. Good on you, Freddie Crystal. Way to follow your dreams and way to pedal your way to notoriety.
I love it. Okay, my turn. Likelihood that the treasure exists. I'm going to go 25%. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the Spanish got it, but I agree with Christian. There's too much there. By the way, expected value here. They say the treasure was worth $3 billion. Even if you think there's a 10% likelihood that it exists, that's a $300 million expected value. That's still worth pursuing and chasing.
So, how do we go from here? If it's in Kanab, there has to be a next step. There has to be someone else that goes.
This is bothering you so
it's driving me
bad.
Nuts. There's the pond down there.
There's been like 3 episodes.
So much down there. Why can't just a rich person, not us, who's got hobbies that are lame, they just go down there and do it?
So did you see one of the comments of the people who live currently in Kanab talking about how, there have been more dives and it's silted off now.
Yeah.
The tunnel is blocked now.
I'm just telling you, technology.
I don't think the dive is the move. I think you got to go drill.
I think the drill is, people are like, let's go dive.
Yeah.
It's I'm a professional diver.
Yeah.
That was actually an interesting comment, but yeah.
Yeah. We learned a lot about scuba diving, by the way. It was fun. My favorite character, you guys kind of took some of mine. My favorite part of the story, a little favorite part, not my favorite, but a good part of the story. By the way, this whole damn episode, Christian keeps telling me to move back closer to the microphone, and Chad keeps telling me to move forward so I'm in frame on the camera. I'm going to lose my freaking mind.
This is my fault. That camera should be over here in this corner. It's 100% my fault because we were going to use this mic and it would have resolved all of the issues. I just know that when we create this video, put it on TikTok, I am going to get roasted. It's all my fault because you are hiding behind the freaking mic.
Just two-faced.
We just love you so much. We want your voice and your face.
And Christian is more of the audio Spotify guy, and Chad is more of the video TikTok guy. So I get it. Exactly. I honestly feel like you guys are pranking me though, because each of you at least 5 times has told me to go in a different direction.
We should just mess with him and be like, go lower, go higher.
You're behind me.
Turn around.
I didn't know you were telling him to push back. This whole time I've been like, what are you doing now?
It's driving me nuts.
Been giving him little charades.
Not my favorite part, but just a really cool little anecdote from the story. I love the Kanab all-women town council story. If you don't know, I'm not going to get into it. If you don't know it, go back to our other episodes or video about it. I just love that story. Okay, we're kind of in our final minutes here, gang. Any other final thoughts before we tease next season?
These guys they obviously don't believe in it. I do. And so if you guys would like to start a new podcast... He
believes in it 25%.
I know, but I'm 100% in. I'm all in. I'm balls deep. So if anyone else here would like to go and find this treasure with me, let's start a new group, a new podcast. These guys are dead to me. Let's go find this treasure and we'll split it.
Christian, who has done zero hard research on this and has only sat in that chair and listened to us tell stories.
Well, see, you guys just want to talk the talk. I want to walk the walk, baby. Okay, you guys just want to talk about this treasure. I want to go find it, okay? It's not for you guys just to have empty wind stuff going nowhere. I want to put these words into action and find some damn treasure.
All right. On that, let's tease next. I am actually really, really excited about next season. We've been researching a couple of different treasures. Awesome suggestions. One that has been suggested a couple of times and that was brought to our attention actually in the course of researching this one. If you'll remember the Dillmans, what brought them to Kanab was that they believed that these kind of, I don't want to call them artifacts, but these stones that had maps carved into them called the Peralta stones, discovered on a highway site in Arizona in the 1980s, 1960s, was actually a map to the Montezuma treasure. What everybody else believed the Peralta stones were a map to, and it harkens to the name Peralta, is a lost mine or series of mines in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona called the Lost Dutchman Mine. It's a different kind of story. It's a story that has a lot of evidence of actual gold. It has a lot of murder and a lot of death, and it is gnarly. I'm really excited to tell the story.
Did I get that right? It's in the Superstition Mountains?
Superstition Mountains are the name of the mountains. Yeah.
So is this behind Gumdrop Lake?
It's in the Season 2 Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
So I'm really excited to get into that and continue this fun adventure through treasures. Should we have a tagline? Like, if it's lost, how about this one? Get rich or die trying.
I like that one. What if it's
50 Cent?
If it's lost, I will find it. I will be there time after time.
I like it.
Okay, I know that's a song. I don't know if you're trying to do that to me, but yeah.
If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Chad after Chad.
Wait, what?
Okay, Chad, do you want to
Can't end that way.
I forgot our outro.
If you fall, I will catch you. I will be waiting time after time.
All right, on that note, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Outside.
Time after time. Time after time.
All right, thanks.